Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by thesoberclub.com. I'm Janie Lee Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi, and welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast. If you are new to this podcast, maybe you've come across it because you've joined in the Sober Summit, then you're very welcome. You've got a whole huge archive to go back through and have a listen to. I've done, goodness knows, is it 300, something like that, episodes? Maybe more now. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of amazing guests to listen back through. So if you have been part of the Sober Summit, then I really hope you've enjoyed it. My talk was on holistic sobriety, and there's been some amazing speakers. It's probably not too late, depending on when you're listening to this, to catch up. It's been a fantastic thing that Maggie put together. Maggie was a guest on the show a few weeks ago, and great to share a stage with some of the soberfluencers. I love that word, it's hilarious. So anyways, I really hope you've enjoyed it. I'm also going to be speaking about holistic sobriety this weekend. If you are lucky enough to be going to the gathering with Susan and Hola Sober. So I look forward to seeing you there if you're going to be able to make that. It's kind of a thing for me at the moment. I've been thinking about it so much because, you know, obviously, as you know, if you've ever heard this podcast, you'll know that I genuinely believe that we need to stop drinking. Of course we do. That underpins absolutely everything. But really, why stop there? Why not allow that incredible, you know, most life-changing thing you'll ever do for your health and well-being? You know, why not let that kickstart you to focus on living your best life? You know, it's a world apart from the other approach where people tend to kind of just hole up and feel a bit miserable and count the days and wish that, you know, things were different. Actually, we are the incredibly lucky ones who have seen the light, as it were, and we can literally focus on holistic sobriety. We can focus on living that best life. You know, I'm not actually a fan of the word holistic, to be fair, but it's the only one that really does mean the whole, you know, mind, body, spirit, everything, taking proper care of ourselves. I do have a little online course to accompany all of this called Holistic Sobriety. It's very cheap and cheerful. If you want to buy that, just go to the show notes and I'll give you the link. Or if you go to thesoberclub.com, you'll find the details of it there. There's a blog post all about that. It also, don't forget, the connection piece is really critical. It is very much part of the holistic picture. It's not being connected, I should say, is what really held me back from being able to have longevity in my sobriety, to stay sober, in other words. I was doing all the pieces, or so I thought, for myself, but I had no connection. And in that, I also had no accountability or support or encouragement. And, you know, you can't really expect a fire to burn on its own. You know, eventually you're going to need to add some coals, right? So, and all sorts of other amazing cliches I'm sure we can think of. So do get connected. It really is key. And the Sober Club is incredibly good value. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't I? But it really is. It's incredibly cheap. We have a huge amount of information in there, and content and exclusive videos. We have meetups. It was great. We had a meetup last week. It's lovely to see the faces and hear the challenges and hear the successes, and we kind of become cheerleaders for each other. And there's an online course as part of it as well called Get the Buzz Without the Booze. So if you haven't already, check out the Sober Club. The price is going to be rising, but I'm going to keep it the same for Sober October. So come on down and join us on the topic of Sober October, which of course is coming along. Here's my top tip. If you're considering doing Sober October, maybe you've been thinking, yeah, this is the time for me to really kickstart my sobriety, then absolutely enjoy that month and focus on Sober October as being a nice way of sort of I don't know, introducing you to great alcohol-free drinks, because there'll be far more in the bars, to making it much easier for you to not need to make an excuse because lots of other people are doing it. Maybe you do want to raise money for some kind of challenge. I don't know. There's lots of different ways of doing this. But the tip is, think about this as, the kickstart. So I would add in another word, go sober, not just for October. Okay, that's two more words, right? Go sober, not just for October. Use it as the springboard and carry on. And here's my challenge to you, make it to the end of Jan. And then you won't have to be, seesawing and do all the whole remorse of Christmas BS. Just make your decision now. Here's my challenge. It's a challenge. Okay, I'm putting it out there. How about making the decision that you're going to allow Sober October to kickstart it all, and you're going to commit to ditching the booze till at least the end of January. There you go. Let me know if you're willing to take on my challenge. There's so much support there. Absolutely tell someone. You can always tell me. I'll answer as many messages as I possibly can. Just follow me on social media at Genuinely Grace. Join us in the Sober Club. Maybe get some coaching. I offer one-to-one coaching. I've trained a whole bunch of coaches who can work with you. Sometimes you just need that little bit of extra support. If you've been sober for years, of course, then this is a great time to just focus on the holistic bit and ask yourself, okay, what can I kind of up level next? What's the next thing I want to focus on with my health and well-being? And then everything starts to feel exciting rather than a little bit depressing. So anyway, there's my little challenge for you. I hope some of you will take me up on that. I need to remind you of a few dates. So thank you, those who came to my event last week, by the way. I'm sure I've already said that. Seems like ages ago now. And as you probably know, because I share it on social media a fair bit now, I have a memoir coming out. It's in about a month's time. It's October the 24th it's published. And it's only just dawning on me, to be honest with you, what a massive thing this is, bearing my soul. I was speaking to another author, and she was saying that it's really interesting with a memoir because obviously I've written lots of books, lots of non-fiction books. And so I'm very used to reading reviews of my books and of course having, doing interviews and having people who want to challenge me or disagree with me or whatever it might be. But when it's a memoir, right, it's your story, it's your truth from your perspective. And this other author was telling me that she had written a memoir, and she was a little bit surprised and a little bit shocked as to how many reviews she got where people were not really talking about the book, but they were judging her, like literally passing judgment on her life. Oh God, I don't know if I'm prepared for that, but anyways, I hope you guys will be nice. So the book is called From Wham to Woo, A Life on the Mic. And, it's a fun blast through the 80s and 90s, my days as a backing singer with Wham, obviously, and Boy George and Kim Wilde and a whole bunch of other bands, and then my top 10 chart hit with Cola Boy, my 5 minutes of fame, and then how I moved into radio and my years at Virgin Radio, and then 24 years on BBC Radio 2, of course. And then obviously there's the sort of transition into the spirituality and the well-being stuff, and how I ended up writing my books, and how I ended up in the sobriety world. So I really hope you'll find it interesting. Depending on your age, you might share some of the memories, and I would love you to come to one of the events. We've got a whole bunch of bookshop events. They're just very low key sessions in bookshops, mostly evenings, although we've got a couple of festivals around the UK. A lot of them tend to be kind of Southeast Midlands, North. I think we've got one in Wales as well. I really hope you can make it. So do book one of the events if you can. You do have to book the tickets in advance, apparently, but it would be fantastic to meet some podcast listeners on that little tour. And also an important date for your diary, Sunday, 24th of November. We're doing a Family Constellations Day in Hertfordshire. So again, you've heard me talk about it a lot. It's incredibly powerful. Come if you can. Doesn't matter whether you're thinking about ditching the booze, whether you've been sober for years. It's not really about that. It's a fantastic way of finding a different perspective to look at what's going on with you, what's going on in your life, how might your past be affecting your present. Never the easiest to describe, but I have a go at it in my blog post. So if you look at the show notes, you'll see a link to a blog post, and you're always very welcome to get in contact. So it's a fairly small group. It'll be great to see you there. It's in Hertfordshire, Sunday, 24th of November. So try and come if you can. It'd be amazing to see you. We touch on how some of the past trauma can impact on our lives in the interview that I'm doing today with Shauna Smith, who is the author of Going Under. Quite an interesting tale. Again, a memoir. So we talk about memoirs as well, but an interesting tale of how her early life, impacted on who she's become. It's a thing for sure. And family constellations is one really amazing modality. Really, really amazing. I've done pretty much everything. I think it's fair to say over my years, I've done pretty much all therapeutic techniques, and and I love many of them. And there are many things that are very powerful for supporting your emotional well-being, for helping you ditch the limiting beliefs, for helping you have a different perspective, for helping you focus on self-esteem and self-love and all of those things. But I don't think there is another modality as powerful as family constellations, particularly alongside matrix reimprinting, which is the other modality that I work with as well. Probably sounds like absolute nonsense to some of you. No idea what I'm talking about. But if you are in that phase of, I really do want to find out more about myself. I want to get to know myself better. That's one of the beautiful things about sobriety. We can actually do that. So Sunday, 24th of November, have a look, go to thesoberclub.com, click on events, and you'll be able to get a ticket for that. Ahead of that, this is not for everyone, but if you are a coach or a practitioner or a therapist yourself, or you have some kind of heart-centered business, then I'm doing a mastermind day all around stepping into the spotlight, gaining visibility for your work, and ditching the limiting beliefs. So I'm hosting that. It's a very small group of people. That's Saturday, the 26th of October. So again, have a look at that. If you go to thesoberclub.com, click on events, and you'll find it there. So one way or another, there's a fair bit coming up over the next few weeks. So I really, really hope I might get a chance to meet some of you, some of the listeners. Of course, we have Sober Coach training in October as well. Another training which is almost sold out for January, the end of January. So if that's something you've been thinking of, then do get in touch and we can have a chat, see if it's right for you, maybe onto our training further into April. It would be amazing to see you. So anyways, I really hope you'll enjoy this interview. It's been great to chat to Shauna. She was a Sober Club member, is a Sober Club member, and fellow memoirist. I think that's the expression. My guest is Shauna Smith, who has a fantastic memoir, a memoir of family secrets, addiction, and escape. Going Under. Shauna, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. As you know, I have written my memoir, and I'm feeling incredibly nervous, so much better to be talking about yours.
I'm looking forward to yours because the eras of music that you talk about are definitely ones I know well.
Oh, so good. Fantastic.
I'm very excited about it.
Good stuff. So tell us a little bit about you, because you live in Australia. So at the moment we're doing this down the line. But tell us a bit about your background, because obviously you're not from there originally.
No. Well, I was brought up in near Edinburgh. Was born in Edinburgh, and then I was brought up in East Lothian, just outside Edinburgh, in the countryside. And I'm the second of four children, and so I had a really half great, half terrible childhood. And I know I am definitely not alone in wanting to look at the ways that problems in my family, my dad's alcoholism and the domestic violence that happened, how that affected me and how I could get beyond it. I know it's a fairly common story. I think a lot of us who have had our own issues with drinking and who've decided to stop can look back at the problems that there were in our families. I'm sure a lot of us have a family line that's full of drinking problems.
Well, as you know, I'm a family constellations practitioner,
Yes.
and it's when I started doing that work, I was absolutely stunned, really, to see how often alcohol, the role of alcohol for starters, pops up in someone's life or in generational trauma. It is fascinating. Just before we talk about the book, I was interested to see as well that you've done lots of interesting stuff, haven't you? You've worked as a producer on TV shows, but you also wrote the Australian Autism Handbook. Is that right?
Yes, and I'm
Ah,
terribly
how,
proud of it.
yeah. How
Yeah.
did that come about?
Well, so when I have a son, my oldest son, who was born in Edinburgh, and he was 1.5 when we came to Australia. There's stories about him in the book, funny stories from his early years in Karachi before we knew he was autistic. He was diagnosed when he was 3 and he had a lot of developmental delays. So he didn't talk basically, but he was very, very active. And I knew nothing about children. So I didn't really start worrying about him till he was about 2.5 and not realizing that a lot of children were talking a lot at that stage. So he was diagnosed, and I had written one book called Sydney for Under Fives, and the publisher of that and I used to chat and say, oh, we must do a book about autism, must do a book about autism. And then she phoned me up one day, really because a friend of hers was in great distress because of her child having just been diagnosed. And she said, we've got to do that book about autism. So I knew that I could handle all the sort of family stories and the things that I knew a lot about. But I got a co-author who was a medical writer and a pharmacist by trade, and she did all the sort of technical bits. So she wrote the early intervention chapters and the co-occurring disorders chapters. And my son was 11 when the first edition of that book came out in 2008, but there are 4 editions of it now. So
Oh,
we
wow.
put one out again last year, which is right up to the minute. And my son is now 27 and living a great life. He's got learning difficulties and he needs quite a bit of support, but he's got a very happy life. And he absolutely loves music, plays the guitar, played the drums. He's mad on heavy metal music. He knows everything about it. And he's just been Iron Maiden were playing here, so he
Oh,
went to
wow.
see them in Melbourne, and then he saw them twice in Sydney. So yeah, that was my first big book. And that one involved me interviewing a lot of other families. But I had done a lot of writing before, but it was all factual writing, and writing creative non-fiction and telling your own stories was a bit different when
It
I
is,
set
yeah.
to writing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So what was it that really inspired you to write it? Was it a case of, some of this stuff that I've uncovered is going to be powerful to share? I mean, I suppose maybe certainly for listeners of this podcast, it'd be good if you share with us your story around alcohol, and because I'm guessing that
Yeah.
had a
Yes.
major that was a
Big.
major factor in you deciding to want to do this.
That's right. Well, it was only really when I stopped drinking that I think I would have been able to do this. I think that lots of things open up in your life. But briefly, so I was brought up in this chaotic household where we didn't know whether dad was going to walk in and be funny and exuberant or whether he would be shouting at all of us and aggressive and violent. And we went on lovely sailing holidays. Lots of good things happened, but it was this undercurrent was always there. So loads of people who have a problem drinking parent never drink at all. But I just took to it as soon as I could. And the first job I got when I left school before I went to uni was in a pub. And I think that all the fun things happened with alcohol when I was growing up as well. There were no drugs around when I was growing up, but there was loads of alcohol. So as soon as I was able to start drinking, I just dived straight in. And I look back on it with, regret to say the least, because in my 20s, I was at uni and I got my degree and everything, but I was pissed most of the time. I did work hard, but and then came straight to Australia, and worked in television, but I could never stay in jobs for very long. I was always shifting around, and I think I was constantly doing geographics, so I was in Australia for a bit, would go back to the UK, then back to Australia, then back to the UK, always working on short-term contracts, which is
Mm.
common in television anyway.
Yeah.
So then I did stop drinking when I was 30. And I met my husband just after that. And the two are correlated because I had a great counselor and she suggested I could stop drinking for a bit. And then I thought I'd be all right because Paul, my husband, doesn't drink, a very stable person. We came back to Australia with our first son. And whilst the kids were little, I quickly found out that hangovers and hyperactive toddlers don't mix at all. So I didn't drink that much. But really, once my youngest children got to school, life was much easier. And then it just picked up again. I don't know if you've had that
Yeah.
experience as well. If you've had a lot of children too.
Yeah, mine definitely ramped up when my kids were young. What I think is really interesting about, some of the stuff you've just said, that you're right. Some people who have alcoholic parents don't drink at all, but many do drink, but they put it into a different box, as it were. So, am I right in thinking that for you, if you had of sort of been introspective and really got into discussing it, which of course you didn't, but had you have done, would it have been that you would have said, well, my dad was an alcoholic, but I'm just having alcohol because it makes me feel more confident, more fun. And the reality is, you were as we say in the sober club all the time, you were a grey area drinker. You were not at rock bottom,
No.
but it was all of these associations that you'd formed. But isn't it ironic that that we're able to put alcohol in these different boxes where it's the alcohol is the thing that the drug, let's call it what it is, that makes me feel more confident and happy and able to have fun and able to manage a bit better with my really full-on kids. And yet it's exactly the same substance that made my father violent. It's bizarre, isn't it? How very, very clever, this substance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not
it really, I think that I was different from Dad because he was drinking spirits all the time and I was drinking wine. And in fact, and I was never shouting, screaming, jumping up and down, driving drunk. Well, probably was a bit, but I wasn't behaving that way. But I did stop for a year in 2013. And the reason I did that was because I had been drinking quite a lot and I felt quite depressed, which always happened to me. If I drank every day for a couple of weeks, I would start to feel depressed. And I'd been mean to my husband. I'd been quite nasty to him. And I'd been trying to provoke an argument, which he was wise enough not to get into. And I was so upset with myself the next day that I thought, right, I'm going to stop for a year. And I did go to 12-step programs, AA, that year. I cannot believe I picked up a drink again at the end of the year, thinking that I'd be fine, thinking it's all over, I'll never have a problem again. What an idiot.
So then when you did finally stop properly, what changed then? What made the difference?
Well, I think what made the difference was community, finding the communities that were there, reading the books and listening to podcasts, including yours, because your podcast was really influential to me for that first year, really, the first few months especially. I did a lot of walking and I had a lot of back podcasts to listen to, and I listened to them all. So I think it was knowing that there was the term grey area drinking, which I hadn't heard in 2013, and also that there were plenty of people just like me. It took me a long time to sort of realize that I would manage without alcohol and that I wanted my life to be better and it would be better if I didn't drink. I think that was partly down to the fact that I was a terrible people pleaser, which I'm sure has a lot to do with the family home not being safe. And so I wanted everything outside the family home to be safe. So I was constantly wanting to be people's friends and be in a community. And I wouldn't have liked to have rocked the boat. Whereas by the time I did stop, I was in my 50s and I don't care so much about rocking the boat at all.
Well, yeah, probably like me, you probably weren't very good at setting boundaries because you were just trying to keep everything on on the equilibrium and keep everyone happy.
Yeah, I had no boundaries, and I'm still, that's something that I work with, or try to improve. In the book, I describe the structure of the book is the year before I stopped drinking, starting in the January and ending with me signing up to a 30, well, it doesn't end, but it gets to the end of November and I sign up for a 30-day course. But I had really, really become quite mentally unwell that year. I was terribly depressed and I was abusing myself in the mornings so badly. It makes me feel very sad to think about it, and the gratitude I have for the fact that I wake up in the mornings now and there's no self-abuse. I'm
Yeah.
not being nasty to myself. Even if I don't feel well when I wake up, I know it's got nothing to do with alcohol. And I'm just so much kinder to myself
Yeah,
than I was then. But I was in a
absolutely.
pretty bad place. And I think a lot of being in that bad place was because my mum had died in the January.
Yeah.
And I was distraught and I was just so many things to think about because she had died and because I lived so far away from her. And I could watch my drinking get worse and worse. And I kept trying to control it, moderate, which is absolute torture, torture, not recommended at all. And I think eventually I just didn't know what to do, So and then found a month off alcohol course and did that. And it was reading the books, listening to podcasts that made me think, actually, I'm in really good company here because all these clever, capable, lovely people are just like me,
Yeah.
And those weren't around even 6 years before, whatever it was, 2013. They just weren't around. So thank goodness for the people who led the way. I'm really
Definitely, yeah.
grateful.
Yeah. I mean, it was podcasts that kept me sober. Actually, that's why I started
Mm.
my own. I kind
Yeah,
of ran
yeah.
out of good ones to listen to. Um, you know, there's a lot of in this book around. Well, the whole thing really is both sort of entertaining and enlightening, but also there's a lot of sadness, isn't there? And
Yeah, there's trauma.
and
Yeah.
darkness, yeah. So
Yeah.
so how difficult did you find it to write this? The
Mm,
resilience, the pain, the
mm.
healing. How did the process of writing it affect you? Did you find that you had to kind of dig deep to feel it was a cathartic experience, or what
Yeah,
what
it,
happened for
it
you?
was really it was really cathartic. I have found it quite life altering actually to get it all out of my head and on paper. I had always I'd always written stuff and I knew from when I was a girl that once my parents died, I wanted to tell the story. And um I wanted to explain what had happened to me and I wanted to get it out of my head and onto the page. Um, we didn't talk about the aggression and the violence in my family. There was lots we weren't allowed to talk about. We just knew that we couldn't talk about it. And even mum, in her older years, I'd sometimes say to her, I want to sort of just chat about things. And she would say, I don't like talking about the past. I don't want to go
Mm,
back into the past. But after she died, her letters and diaries were sent out to me. My sisters didn't want them. And so there was lots of things happening over that year after she died. So I started writing my own list. I wrote out a long list of everything I wanted to write about. And I really wanted to write about the good parts of childhood and the bad parts of childhood and the whole confusing mess that it was and try and make some sense out of it, which I feel as if I have done.
mm,
And at the same time, I wanted to tell mum's story because she did emancipate herself from dad, although she stayed married to him for what they described as, or what dad described as 49 years of unholy deadlock.
mm,
They did stay together, but I also wanted to. I like to leave in things with humor, and I think I've always been somebody who liked to try and find the funny side of things if you could. So there's a lot of humor in it as well, and I do. I mean, although I show the worst parts of my father, I do also write some things about when things were good with him.
mm.
So I'm trying to write the whole picture. Mum's story, and then the story of trying to look after mum when we were little and failing, and then looking after her when she was old, and also the peace that she found at the end of her life. So it's there was a lot that I wanted to get in there. I had to write it in wee bits. So I would often just do half an hour and then go for a walk and then
Mm.
come back and maybe do another half an hour. And I suppose it did take me. So I started it in 2020. Thank God I stopped drinking before the pandemic. Um, and then I finished it at the end of last year. So that would have been, that was three years of writing
Yeah.
on and off
And what
with
about
big
the
breaks you need.
yeah. What about the kind of the you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, I'm really nervous about my memoir coming out. Did
Mm,
you have those feelings of sort of vulnerability? Because,
mm,
you know, you're now sort of revealing these some of
mm,
these really difficult and intimate aspects of your life, you know, with a
mm.
wider audience, but also with people who know you.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about that? What about the rest
Uh,
of your family?
well, I actually really wanted to get it all out and on the page, and I wanted to tell the truth. I was really motivated. I So people who knew us as kids and who knew our family, who lived in the village that we lived in, family as well, some of them would have known quite a bit about what was happening, and others wouldn't have known so much. And I just think I got the bit between my teeth, and I just thought, this is my story, and I want to talk about it.
Mm,
And that comes from being a little girl and not being allowed to talk about it, I think.
yeah,
So, you know, I've had good feedback from cousins and friends. And often people have been saying, "Oh, you're so brave to write this." It didn't feel as if it was brave for me. I've been a bit of an oversharer, but I had never told this whole story before. I mean, there's a few stories about me, things that I did in my 20s that I'm not proud of at all. And I'm hoping when my children read it, I hope they'll be mature enough to understand why I was such a mess emotionally. Um, I have to say that there were many, many, many stories that are not in there as
of
well,
course,
you
yeah.
know. And I've written about my brother. That was the biggest moral and ethical dilemma because he has got schizophrenia, so he hasn't got the intellectual capacity to make decisions about it. So my elder sister read it and she has power of attorney for him. So she told me a lot of things that she didn't like that I'd written. And I took her thoughts on board, but I didn't take out all the things she would have liked me to have taken out.
Because
And I
ultimately it's
changed
your
his name.
perspective, isn't it?
It is. And yeah, and I was trying to write about my interactions with him and the effect that things happened. Like he set my parents' house on fire and he went to prison for it. The effect that that had on me, which was profound, of course. So yeah, I was trying to write it about it in that way. I actually feel relieved that I have done it, and I feel that it's important for me to have done it to put it behind me, you know, and
I do think it is fascinating. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think, you know,
mm,
what you just said there was so important. You know, in the old days, that's what people did for their mental well-being. They sat around the fire and they told stories,
mm,
and you know they shared what was going on, and
mm,
the sharing of it, the telling of it, the releasing of it.
mm,
There's real power in that because when it's
mm,
all locked up inside and
mm,
festering away, it's doing all kinds of damage. But
mm,
actually, by sharing it, it does
mm.
make a difference. I can really
Yeah.
understand that.
And I felt and I say at the end of the book that it was only when I stopped drinking finally, and felt so relieved and knew it was permanent that I felt that my dad's story was finished and the
Mm,
effect
mm,
that his drinking had on me was finished. You
yeah,
know, and that's been a long process of working things out. And I also talk in the book, there's a couple of sections where I did EMDR therapy with a
yeah.
psychologist. That was really helpful as well. And I don't think I would have been able to do this without having psychological support throughout it, you know.
I tell you what, if
But
you come to the UK, you've got to come and
mm,
do one of our family constellation sessions.
oh yeah,
You'd find it
yeah.
amazing. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah, I'm sure I would. I think that the people being recovering out loud or sober out loud on social media is really beneficial. And now I don't want to be anonymous, you know, anything but.
exactly.
And other people's books really, really, really helped me. So there also was this, I want to help other people too. And I want to, you know, because you know when it's relatable and you think that's me, it's so powerful. And I think I had that urge to to give back in that way and to touch other people the way that writing has touched me and brought me forward.
Yeah, I mean that was going to be my last question is, what would you hope that others get from the book, particularly if there's a message that there might be somebody sort of going through something similar and they've maybe not even felt brave enough to look at it. I suppose that's when it is really powerful, isn't it? When you can read somebody else's story, recognize yourself in it, and see that there is a way through.
Yeah, that's right. And I've really enjoyed other people's sobriety stories, which often start when they stop drinking and goes forward with flashbacks. But mine actually starts 11 months before I stopped drinking. And I'm sure that many grey area drinkers will relate to how I behaved, how I tried to stop myself, all my cunning plans, how tiring it was, how much I abused myself. And hopefully anybody who's had trauma in their childhood will relate to it and hopefully relate to how much you can heal from that. Yeah. I'm not saying life's perfect now, far from it, but and things still do upset me, but I'm just my life's on such a more even keel now. And I'm still sort of delighted and amazed and relieved, and I'm just so glad, because even for all those years, even when I did stop drinking at times, I never thought I'd be able to stop forever. Yeah. And it is like being set free. It really is. It really is. Yeah.
It really is like being given another chance at life, as one of my clients said.
Is.
I love that.
Yes, it is. That is.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Shauna. The book is Shauna Smith, Going Under, a memoir of family secrets, addiction and escape. So we'll put that link in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat to me. Now, if I ever get to come over to Australia again, let's meet up and do something together. Yes, and if you come over to the UK, it'd be great to see you.
Yeah, and thank you for your podcast, Janie, because it really, really made a difference for me, and I'm very grateful.
Great, all the best. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks. So we'll pop the link in the show notes, along with those links, as I mentioned already, for my book tour for the various dates around the UK, and also for Family Constellations on Sunday, the 24th. Just a reminder, please join us in the Sober Club. You'd be so welcome, particularly if you are doing, the Not Just for October session. Then, you need accountability, you need support, you need connection, you need lots of people cheering you on. So come and join us. It's a fantastic time to do that. Either way, whether you join us or whether you're part of another community or whether you just decide to go it alone, still tell someone. I do say this every week, and I do get messages, and I'm really grateful. People actually say to me, okay, I'm telling you then. I don't really know anyone else that it feels right to tell, so I'm telling you. And you know what? That's okay. I'll reply if I can. I'll be holding that vision for you. When you tell someone else, it just gives another layer of accountability for you. You've made it real. It's not just a kind of floaty thing in your head that the wine witch can knock out of the park for you instantly. It makes it real. Make this commitment. Just make the commitment. As I said at the beginning, I'd like to challenge you to commit not just for October, but right through to the end of Jan. How about that? Let me know if you're going to take up that challenge, right? I'd love to know how it goes. And if you're someone who's been sober for years, just keep spreading your light. Sober October is a good time to do it, isn't it? Because people do open up conversations. It is an easier time to be social, around booze. So it's a great opportunity to have that conversation with the person at work or someone standing by the water cooler or whatever. And then you have that chat about, actually, it's the best thing I have ever done. Ever done for my health and well-being. And for anything like me, the only regret is you didn't ditch the booze sooner. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast, brought to you by the Sober Club. Please rate and review, and if you want support, accountability and inspiration, and you want to live your best life without the booze, check out thesoberclub.com.